Welcome back, folks, to the next part of the show. And now I'm gonna invite two people named Helen and Mark. They're gonna be here. They're ready to read to you. Now, Helen, Mark, come here. They are coming out. Helen stands here. Mark stands here. Okay. So this is Helen and this is Mark. Say hello to the viewers right now. Helen said hello. He says hola. Very good, very well. Everything started great. So now, they're gonna whisper to my ears, and I will say to you what they whispered, and all you need to do is to decide which of the sentences that Helen or Mark read, okay? So now, let's begin. Oh, Helen first. Okay. Oh, this is not only a conversation, but this is like the oral examination because Helen is gonna speak first, and Mark is gonna speak later. And there's a role for the teacher because they are taking oral examination. So teacher, they will speak to the teacher, the examiner. Okay, so I will be the examiner. I'm gonna ask the questions, and Helen, Mark, they will be candidates. Okay, so they're gonna whisper to me, and I'll read to you what they whispered. Okay, now Helen first. Mark, you can go grab something to eat. Okay, then later come back, not to go and hide. Okay, so now let's go with Helen. Helen. The first thing I'd like to say is that I disagree with this statement. I don't believe that this generation of the teenagers is less well-behaved than previous generations. First of all, we often see reports on TV or read in the newspapers that teenagers are out of control. However, in my view, this has always happened. The older generation is always critical of young people. My parents' generation, for instance, were criticized for being disrespectful and disobedient. But looking back, what kind of disrespect and disobedience was quite minor, wasn't it? The problems with teenagers today are far more serious. Gangs, drugs, crime, isn't that true? I don't think it is. In my opinion, the problem is that adults don't understand teenagers and frequently misinterpret their behavior. For instance, teenagers often hang around in large groups and are sometimes a bit noisy. Some adults find this behavior frightening or intimidating. They talk about gangs of teenagers, but most teenagers don't cause trouble. They enjoy meeting up with people of their own age. It is natural. But surely, in the past, young people had more respect for authority and more respect for adults. I disagree with that. I believe older people need to make more of an effort to understand teenagers and not to stereotype them. If they did that, they'd realize that most teenagers are in fact will be more well behaved. Okay, that was what Helen spoke. Now Helen can go and take a seat, and now Mark's gonna come to me and read what he wanted to read. Okay, now let's start with you, Mark. What do you want to say about the presenting arguments about modern generation less well behaved than previous generations? I'd like to begin by saying that I agree with the statement. I believe that teenagers nowadays are less well behaved than, say, our parents were when they were teenagers. There are numerous examples of how standards of teenage behavior have declined. Firstly, teachers complain that students are disrespectful and that they will not do as they are told. Furthermore, they use bad language in the classroom. In my opinion, discipline in schools isn't as good as it used to be. My father would have been severely punished if he had misbehaved in school. But you don't use bad language or misbehave, don't you? Do you? Nobody in this classroom does. You are all very mature, responsible students. What makes you think school students are so bad? Ooh, I asked great questions. Let's see what Mark answered. I've read about it in newspapers, and there are stories on TV too. Everybody knows there's a problem with discipline in schools, and it isn't just in school. Parents have less control over teenagers nowadays, so they are less well behaved at home too. They spend too much time watching TV or playing computer games. What is more, they are often allowed to stay out late, and sometimes the parents don't know where they are. So, teenagers have more freedom these days. Won't that make them more responsible and mature, at least the long run? Perhaps in the past, there wasn't have less control over the teenagers nowadays, so they are less well behaved at home too. They spend too much time. What is happening? Oh, I read the old line. Sorry about that. Let me read a teacher's line one more time. So teenagers have more freedom these days. Won't that make them more responsible and mature, at least in the long run? Perhaps in the past, there wasn't enough freedom. I don't agree. Teenagers are too young to be given much freedom. If you let them do whatever they want, they make bad choices which can ruin their lives. For instance, teenagers nowadays are more likely to drink alcohol and take drugs than they were before. Many boys become aggressive and when they are drunk and cause troubles in towns, especially at night. People who take drugs often steal money in order to pay for their drugs. Okay, they had a lot of ideas. I want to thank for both Helen and Mark. Now they can go. Okay, hand in hand, go forever young, forever alone. And folks, have you chosen out the answer yet? Helen or Mark, who said these statements? Okay, so I will correct the answer right now. First, we have firstly, teachers complain that students are disrespectful and that they will not do as they are told. Who said that? Helen or Mark? This is Helen. This is Mark. Who said? Mark said. Yay. So first one, it is Mark. Okay, so Mark, it is the first one. Second, you can look at your book too. The older generation is now always critical of young people. It's always critical of young people. Who said that? Helen. Number 3. I believe that teenagers nowadays are less well behaved than, say, our parents were when they were teenagers. Mark. Okay, Mark. The problem is that adults don't understand teenagers and frequently misinterpret their behavior. It is Helen. Helen said that. I believe older people need to make more of an effort to understand teenagers or not to stereotype them. It is Helen. We'll be right back with the next part of the show, and then I will review what are the 3 left answers right there. Tune in to watch.